All right, here we are. Big Talk. Episode 1. The left representing NY&J. Tismatic on the right representing PNW. How you guys both doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Pretty good. Nice. Bob, you just got back from work, right?
No, I got back from like a work party. It was it wasn't really a work party. It was for like networking and stuff. But yeah, I had a good time. Had an open bar, so
Ooh, always love that.
good of a time. I was such a surprise. I thought it was just gonna be old people. And it was a bunch of young people and an open bar and music, and I was like, man, this is nice. But so yeah, I had a good day.
Nice. And Jared, you just had some dinner, right? Been a pretty chill day
it
for
was
you.
a pretty short day.
I also just ate some dinner. Had some chicken rice, bit of broccoli. It was a good time.
The dinner?
Yeah, it's like 5 o'clock here.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not a dinner at 5 kind of guy. Dinner's not for another 2 or 3 hours, probably.
You're my type of guy.
I get it. All right, so if we want to start off, maybe you guys can, give a little bit of background of your perspective, your region, history with that. Let's start with Jared.
Okay. Well. Oh gosh, where do I start? I'm from Washington. Like Washington State, West Coast. We got a really active, really lively scene here. Before COVID, we had 2.5 to 3 like bi-weeklies on different days, just kind of cycling. One of them was kind of inconsistent. That's why I say like not a whole. Anyway, we have like a bunch of dedicated carpools that have like a bunch of pretty devoted players.
All right.
So far, like we haven't really experienced a lot of the same growing pains as other places. Because we just have like a really dedicated player base that's willing to travel a decent distance, to play. As far as background, I'm part of like Eastside Smash, which is a dumb name, but it's because we're like east of Seattle, and it's we basically now we're running all the stuff that's around here now that we're back with in-person events, and as it is, we kind of govern the scene, determining like power rankings, rule set, etc.
Okay, I see. And then your general opinion on P+ and just like changing the game as a whole.
Generally speaking, our scene and I was pretty resistant to a lot of alterations because, for the most part, finding things wrong with the game is not our first inclination. It's still a thing we do, obviously, every time. Like, Wario kills you with Waft, and you're like, what the hell? But like, it's not our first instinct, and it's just kind of the accept things how it is and just try to be better, or just like don't play low tier lol, right?
Okay.
So changes we're pretty resistant to. Stageless stuff. We've just kind of been watching the slippery slope continue on.
I see.
With with the PMBR like standardization and like nerfing certain stages. That was probably the best change that came through. But then as more changes, the precedent that set with changing the game has led to a lot of changes. And while that's not automatically the worst thing, I don't think the game is necessarily in a worse place than it was before. It's different.
Of course. All right. Okay, now Bob, if you want to go ahead and do your introduction.
Malachi. I've been playing since like 2014, I think is when I started playing PM and 3.0. I've been playing ever since, like at a competitive level. I've been top 5 for like 2016 since they started the rankings. I'm from NY&J. Our local scene is non-existent, but that's okay.
All right.
And let's see what else. I was also on the P+ dev team for a brief moment, and I also had a part in making the stages that we're actually talking about today. Just like general concept stuff and like layout stuff and kind of that kind of stuff. So I have a pretty big hand in it. And so obviously with that, I'm pretty okay with changes in PM and just like the game in general. just my philosophy is I think that we're like already a modded game. Like I understand Melee and like Ultimate because Ultimate's sponsored by Nintendo and
Mhm.
Melee is like kind of harder to mod. But we're already a modded game, so in my opinion, I think we should always kind of embrace change and kind of being better. Um, Not to say that I think P Plus is like a perfect game or anything. I think P Plus definitely has its issues. And same with the stages. Like I think that nothing's perfect, but I'm personally of the opinion that change isn't like an automatic bad thing.
Mhm. Of course. Okay. All right. With that, I guess we can get into our first question. We're gonna start pretty broad with our first question. That being, what are the elements of good stage design? Um, let's start with Jared on this one. What do you think the elements of good stage design are?
I think the variability on and the way that a stage can influence a matchup is kind of what defines whether or not a specific stage is good. And the thing that determines if it is like a healthy stage for the game itself is what it offers and the way that it balances with other stages in the list. So every individual stage, you can only, with the exception of like egregiously like small blast zones, egregiously large blast zones, in like a particularly unnecessarily wide stage, super awkwardly high plats, stuff like that that I see getting touched on with this with the recent changes that New York, New Jersey is running. Like some of those changes can be problematic if they're particularly noticeable or particularly painful, and in particular if there are too many stages with those attributes. It's more about the list as a whole compared to an individual stage, because the whole point of stage counterpicking is that the stage is supposed to have some influence on which character has an advantage. And if it's too much of an advantage, that's what the bans are for. And then if there aren't enough bans to cover what that character is good at, then it's either because they're a top tier and or it's a bad matchup, or the stage list itself is bad.
Okay. So in general, you'd say elements of good stage design aren't necessarily limited to like individual stages. You have to holistically look at the whole stage list.
Right.
And it's the
You can't-
variety.
the stage is not good or bad in a vacuum. It's more about what it offers to the metagame. There's definitely some things that are pretty easy to agree on, like as being removable, or like I do find the point about like it's a modded game, so when you can fix stuff, just fix it. Like original iterations of Bowser's Castle had this weird little like raised thing in the center, right? Why? You can get rid of that, right? It's annoying. It doesn't help the game or anything. It doesn't offer much, and it doesn't do the same thing as like the things I was listing as good for a stage. It just kind of gets in the way.
Got it. Okay. All right, Bob. So let's see what you have to say. What are the elements of good stage design in your opinion?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know. Just from making this list, I don't really know what makes a good stage, but I feel like I do have a pretty good idea of what makes a stage not good. And I feel like when a lot of stages have an element of like either one, non-interactivity, or two, they'll change a matchup very severely in just like them being the stage itself, right? So and I noticed that's kind of like our stage list right now. Like the PMBR stage list, I feel like has like a couple of stages where, or a couple scenarios where it kind of promotes non-interactivity, or the stage itself like changes a matchup to the point where I'm not particularly like comfortable with it.
Okay.
Like I think just in my opinion, just to get this out of the way, I don't think stage picks should be so extreme. I think stages are important, obviously. There should be stage variety. But I don't think they should dictate so much of a matchup in a way that we can help. And then sometimes it's just gonna happen. Like sometimes there'll just be a bad matchup on like a pretty like normal stage. Like let's say like Kirby Fox on like PS2. Like PS2 is a pretty neutral stage, but that's like still like a pretty rough matchup. And the stage definitely doesn't help. But I do think that we can like go towards a direction that will, mitigate that as much as possible. Um,
I see.
as far as the stage list holistically, I do understand that the stage list needs to be like, you need to look at the stage list as a whole, but I do think you need to look at the stages as individuals, and I don't think the fact that because you can ban a stage, that a stage is acceptable, or that we should, be okay with the stage.
Yeah, of course. So in general, you'd say that rather than talking about good stage design, it's easier to note problems than it is to note like strengths of a stage.
Yeah, it's like we should know problems, and I think that we should improve off of those problems. Like you said with the Bowser's Castle thing, like that's an obvious problem, but what bothered me is that no one fixed it. I was like, man, this is a very obvious problem, but no one's really fixing it. We kind of just like tossed out the stage, and we have the ability as a mod to make those kind of changes.
That stage was actually made by a guy that was from around here, but then nobody really like picked it up and fixed it.
Yo,
I feel
for
like-
real? Oh
Yeah.
my!
A lot of
They
that's
made-
just an
made
issue.
llama juice.
Like,
Yeah.
a lot of that was an issue of back when we made the PMBR stage list. There wasn't really an authoritative body, like, for, PM at the time. Because, we didn't have the actual dev team anymore. And PMBR was a pretty loosely, like, associated thing. So it's hard to make, like, I don't know, just decisions like that and, like, hot fixes.
Yeah, and then people were already pretty opposed to PMBR as it was. And so I bet that put you in kind of a tight spot to where, I don't think we can change it again because, if they like don't accept it, this becomes a problem.
The thing with Bowser's Castle too, specifically, don't want to talk too much about that one. It had this obviously addressable problem, but the real reason we didn't use it isn't actually because of that like center thing. It also had redundancies in the list, which is like we experimented with it at a weekly here because we had enough, we had the I guess the privilege to in our region with how many weeklies we were running to actually be able to mess around with stuff. So one of our down south ones, but Bowser's Castle is one of those ones that the people that pick it, they're like, yeah, I love it, instead of I love it because what it is and not because they thought it offered anything valuable competitively or anything. It was just like, it's new and different.
I see.
And so that's kind of more to the point of the list as a whole and why certain stages you just like don't want to use them or whatever. We didn't use it for a long time, still don't actually because of that.
I see.
I think a
So
lot
then-
of places were the same.
So then to summarize, Jared's perspective is that it's more important to have, a good amount of variety in your stages, look at it holistically from that viewpoint, and that we have bans to solve the problems, where like stages are a bit more egregious than others. Whereas Bob is more focused on dealing with degenerative gameplay, preventing that from rising up. I would like to go into that, like, what would you describe as like degenerative gameplay or like non-interactive gameplay, Bob? If you want to explain that a little bit.
Sure. It's just like there's a lot of moments. It happens a lot with the moving platforms, but like it happens a lot with stages in general, where it's like kind of the play is to camp because there's not really anything to do, right? So let's say like Smash a platform, which is honestly my biggest problem with the platform going off stage, is that when it's off stage, it is not in the interest of the person who's on the stage to approach. Like you have nothing to gain from it. You're in such a bad situation if you approach. It's almost objectively like the wrong option a lot of the time, because it's like, okay, you approach, now you're approaching from the air because you can't approach from the ground because there is no ground because it's off stage, and then it's like, okay, you're liable to get punished. They have more options. They can shield drop and then get to the platform, and then they have advantage. So and there's like a bunch of little stuff like that affects characters in like big ways. Like I think another one's kind of Green Hill Zone. I remember a very distinct experience when I played Ness, and I was playing my friend's Meta Knight, and he just camped the platform the entire time, and I was like, man, this is this is pretty silly. And it's like, I don't think those stages are like terrible because of that, but I do think that we should kind of like avoid those kind of
Mhm.
situations in general. Because it's like, that's a part of the game. You could say camping is a part of the game, but I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it's a part of the game that anyone really like enjoys or like encourages.
I
Like, I don't
see.
think anyone really encourages camping and stuff like that.
One stage
And
we've never really looked at in Washington, because of the ease of circle camping and utilizing the ledge, is Distant Planet.
yeah,
Mm,
Yeah, we
that's
never
another
really
one.
fucked around with that one for reasons that are pretty similar. It's like
I see.
you can
Yeah,
pretty
I s-
easily camp those platforms and
yeah, and
utilize their proximity to the ledge is pretty problematic alongside the size of the stage.
and it can make things very, very problematic if you want to go for it. Like with PM, we have a certain honor code, especially because we're a smaller game that people are
Social
like,
contract.
don't
Mhm.
really,
Everybody
yeah,
knows your
like
name, so if you play like a bastard,
yeah, it's like, and then it's like a small game, and you want to play cool, you don't want to bore people. But like at the end of the day, I think design should be based around design, right? Like if a stage is like has like so much potential to do that, then maybe there's something wrong with the stage. And that's kind of just like where I am in terms of like degenerate gameplay.
Mhm.
I think that like a stage could be fine 90% of the time, but if it's like not okay 10% of the time, I think that becomes like something that maybe to look into. That's
Okay.
kind of my that.
That leads pretty well into the next question. I mean, it kind of directly, addresses it, which is what are the problems with the current stages we have, if any, and how should/have they been addressed? So, that interests me. Jared, how do you feel about the Smashville plot in in the examples Bob's given?
okay. So Bob brings up a good point with there being some situations where it's never good for you to, where you have a positional advantage, but you can't press that positional advantage in any way. So like if they're on the Smashville plat and then the plat's now off stage, it's like I don't want to jump at them. So you just don't. The thing about with Smashville specifically, the thing about it is that situation is not eternal. It can't be held forever. The platform will move in eventually. And then when they get on, and then it's just the same problem. Once the platform is on the stage, the problem becomes like the same thing as when a person is looking to do something like shield drop camp a platform. Like when that's what they're looking for, when that's the starter that they want. When you see shit like I still remember, and Bob probably remembers ages ago, like one of the fair and balance tournaments. The set fucking started off with Thunder's jumping between the plats because he wanted a
Yeah.
shield drop thing, and then Bob crouch cancel in response, like crouch cancel camping and to beat the shield drop camp because like that's the answer, right? And so that is degenerative, but I don't think anybody would call PS2 a degenerate stage. I don't think most people would, right?
I
But
see.
there's still degenerative gameplay arising because at a certain point when you optimize, I think there is always some level of being overly conservative or defensive.
Mm-hmm.
And
But you don't think the fact that the plot is off stage makes it, more egregious than the PS2 plats, for instance? Because, there's a lot less risk as the attacker when you have the stage beneath you to deal with that.
I think when you focus in deeply on the 1.5 to 3 seconds where the person now on the plat can sustain that position, if you focus in and you don't look to either side of it, where you could have prevented them from getting to the plat, or you could, when the platform is no longer off stage, no longer take the same risks because you have 8 minutes to work with, right? And I know that kind of leans towards the let's not camp because it's boring thing, right? But those 2 seconds can mean a world of difference if you just take that to rest up. You still have the positional advantage, and more or less exactly when that position will properly become an advantage and when you can push it, because it's not forever.
I see. So then do you think that it's fine that, the way it deals with, say, like, Halo invincibility and stuff? Like, do you think that it's okay that you can, like, wait it out, so easily like that?
That is a time when probably that's the most annoying, I guess. That offstage camp is when they are not a fast character and they have respawn invincibility and they want to press their advantage right now. but I don't consider those 2 seconds to be degenerative enough to make it so that the platform can never do that. And the recovery mix-ups, the fun edge guard situations, the interesting kill confirms that could arise because of the Smashville platform's location or its movement or anything like that. I don't think that it's worth the cost of sacrificing those situations just because the slow character that just respawned wants to press their advantage immediately.
I see, and that leads pretty well into our next question, moving a bit quickly, but I think we could spend a good bit of time on this one, which is basically, do you think more dynamic situations and like stage elements, like the Smashville plat going off stage, the FOD plats moving up and down, Delfino's as well, do you think they're important to have in the game as a way to reward players who have a larger variety of situations, like memorized or have better game sense? I'll let Bob lead off this one.
Like a little bit. It's like I think that like it's good to just to pick apart your question. I think it's good to have variety. I think it's good to have variety in the stages, and the stages need to be different. And I think that you should be rewarded for knowing your stage. So let's say you know a certain tech or a certain stage because you play on it a lot, or you have experience with it, then you should get rewarded for that. Do I think that it particularly justifies certain attributes of certain stages? No, I don't. I don't think that. While I do think that you should be rewarded for knowing the stages, I think the reward goes to a certain point, and I think once it passes a certain point of like, okay, well, I know this stage, and that's good. But if the stage well designed, that's kind of my thing. Like okay, like maybe this is a bad example, but like maybe like let's say like it's a good example. Like the thing is that you could know a stage and you could know a stage very well, but I don't think that makes it good. And I don't think the unique elements of those stages, even though they reward someone for playing it well, I don't think it makes the stage good automatically. Because then you could say that about a lot of stages. Then you could say that about like in Rainbow Cruise, like a lot of people knew when like the platform spawned, and they got rewarded for like knowing versatile stages. Like I got rewarded for knowing that part of the stage, but it doesn't exactly mean that the stage is good. Like I think you should. While it's important to look at like stage knowledge and stuff like that in terms of like just benefiting a player, like I think players should benefit, but I do think that you should look at the stage as a whole before that whole thing.
I think one example that kind of illustrates what you're talking about is the difference. So there are some bad things that can arise on FOD because of the awkward situations where it's like overly dynamic. I'm not a big FOD guy myself, right? But like when plats come out randomly in the interrupt dashes, when they break grabs for no reason, stuff like that, that's like, that makes you unhappy, and it's like, that does feel poorly designed. And
because you can't plan ahead for it.
It doesn't feel like that outweighs a person who has practiced their pressure strings that change radically with like FOD low plat height when they're not moving. That low plat height where you get the aerial out and it's pretty much guaranteed to be like as ideal on shield as it always as possible, right?
Yeah.
Like those, maybe you feel like those don't even out.
Yeah, I feel like because there are people that like FOD, and I understand why you like FOD. Because it is definitely a unique stage, and there are people that are definitely good on FOD. But I feel like the bad parts of FOD, like you said, like the platform writhing, and then kind of messing up your movement, and kind of miss something because of it, and then it's in your head the whole time, and then that changes the pace of the game. I don't think that's like too valuable. And I don't think it's worth like keeping a stage because of that.
Yeah, really, those plats, they occupy a lot of territory when they're rising up.
Yeah,
like,
they're like a lot of the stage. They're technically not random in this game. I learned that pretty recently.
Yeah, I remember Eon talking about that.
They're technically not random, but it's like 99% of the people won't know that. Oh, the FOD
with how sandboxy the game is, and where you can be at different places, you can't exactly plan 40 seconds from now. This plat's going to be up. Let's try to fight around it so that I can break their grab. You
Yeah,
never
it's
meant
not-
to do it. You got
It's
lucky.
not like a Wario, a Yoshi
Sure.
Story Randall, where you know the timing. Like no
Mhm.
one's really keeping track of that. And if you do, that's good for you. But most 99% of the people aren't.
That's like so much of a mental strain to even try to do.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, the element of randomness that unexpected situations where neither player planned for them can, when those get introduced, I don't see coming out on top in that situation as particularly more egregious than coming out on top like when both play like after a trade, or when both players don't particularly expect to get hit, or when you hit an OMSA tech you didn't expect to hit but you get the hit, you get to punish them afterwards because of it. Like, I don't see most of those situations being so egregious because of the stage as opposed to because of the post scramble decision making. I think that it is a skill to win in a scramble, to keep your wits about you, or to make the right decision in the heat of the moment. And while it's, I mean, even if it's just snap instinct and that doesn't feel particularly skillful, even if it's their character just automatically wins most scuffles, even if you're a floaty and you got air grab braked and now you're automatically losing when you were previously winning, it's still a skill. And so being able to adapt to the unexpected aspects in other situations is definitely seen as a skill, and I think that with stages, for some reason, it's not seen that way.
I think it would generally
I think-
refer to the agency of the players. Like in most scrambles, the only thing that really, weighs in on the outcome of it is what either character does. Like the agency is all in the hands of the players there. Whereas if it's randomly a FOD plat moving up or down, then no one was really responsible for that. Like there was no real decision being made there.
When like a weird trade happens or something, you know what I'm talking about? Those scrambles that are created where both players got hit or something, and then one of them has to make a good decision. And you can see like real amounts of skill shine through sometimes, or like real what many people would just automatically like call skillful. Like when one player's instinctually shields because of the defensive situation, the other player knew that and just does like an empty land grab. Or
The game
right?
sense, yeah.
They just come out on top. There is a chance to win those scrambles, and those scrambles are still created, and whether or not the stage created them or whether or not the players created them, and when the players create them, they didn't mean to create that scramble. It's a scramble. Everything's up in the air. It's like they still have to vie to be on top. And they have to do so in the heat of the moment. And I don't think that the stage creating that situation is automatically more problematic. I mean, I've been robbed by FOD plat my fair share of times. I've upthrown a Zelda before, and their dins, comes and interrupts my upthrow because I'm playing Charizard, right? And it's like they didn't actually mean for that to happen either. It doesn't matter but it does happen, and I can't just be salty about it. I should have appraised the situation better before throwing them. I should have done something differently so that was not the case. Okay. But I didn't. And I don't see that as problematic, and that extends to stages as well. I don't take issue automatically with a weird situation created by the stage. I can say, oh god damn it, I hate this stage, and I hate it for 5 seconds. But I don't dislike it enough, and I don't see that as spawning any sort of degenerate gameplay to the point that the stage itself needs changing or removing.
Yeah, and I feel like that's where our main thing is going to come into play, because I like I said in the beginning, I think the stages should be pretty secondary, pretty important, but I feel like the stages shouldn't play such a vital role in a game, like in a match in general. And I do think it should play a decently big role, but when we get to the point of it like dictating a match so heavily, or like I said, a matchup so heavily, then that's when I get to the point where I'm like, maybe this stage isn't that like good. And just with the scramble situation, I do agree that like like stuff happens on stages, like some weird stuff happens, but like some weird stuff isn't good. Like for example, the I don't know if you guys remember, but in 3.6, the moving platform on Smashville, or I guess all moving platform, if you like shield dropped a certain way, then you would just like
land back on the platform.
You would do the weird empty land on the platform.
Yeah,
and like that's a situational thing. Like you should play better with that, but I don't think anyone would agree that should have stayed in the game.
Yeah,
I
it
have a
basically
friend
allowed
that's
you
a
to
big
do any
fan of
move.
that mechanic, actually.
It was kind of
You
funny. It
prob-
let you do any move out of shield, like any grounded move, basically, if you
I
just did instant shield drop there.
one of my friends was actually a big fan of that specific interaction, actually.
Oh, look at that. That's funny. But I don't know. I feel like as a whole that like played into like mostly like negatives in the game. Like I don't think that really like benefited the game to the point where like we should have kept that in, even though it's a situational awareness thing. Like, oh, you didn't know that you would like instead of shield drop punishing, you would like land on the platform and then get punished for it.
Yeah, I guess they're kind
I
of bringing
don't
this
think
up
that
in
coming
chat.
out on top of weird
Mhm.
situations is a bad thing. I just it isn't where the biggest like that is a completely far removed reason to change a stage compared to promoting degenerative gameplay, because it the stage itself does not degenerate the gameplay. It just upends the situation and forces players to change what they do pretty quickly, compared to, say, Washington never touching distant planet because fuck circle camping on the right side or something with the leaf, then shield dropping and then going straight to ledge and then turning winner. That would be degenerative. It would be a lot more difficult to get damage, especially on a low percent character on that stage. And so that would incentivize low percent circle camping using the ledge and the leaf plat. That is completely different from any sort of scuffle that's ever created from the empty land thing on plat in 3.6 with Smashville. That's different from any bizarre throw point instant landing where they miss attack and you were expecting to get a throw combo and they were expecting to get throw comboed, but then they get a release point collision on the ground. They end up grounded all of a sudden.
Okay.
That's just a situation you just have to adapt to. The game is really sandboxy as it is, and creating weird situations isn't automatically a problem of the stage. It's just a completely different philosophy for modifying and removing a stage compared to the stage lets you camp. The stage makes the game less fun. And one thing I want to bring up, like I did get the chance to play on some New York New Jersey stages for 5 or 6 sets, I think. And the thing is, with one of the problems with the current list of like the PMBR list is that we've been playing on the stages for like 5 fucking years, and maybe it'd be nice to have some variety, right? I don't have a problem with the stage list because of that. The problem that I had with the stage list is that a lot of this, and this is not just my feedback personally, some of the other people I was playing with felt similarly, that the stages feel samey. Even though they have widely varied blast zone sizes, they still try to fill the same niche, which is something that I very much appreciate with that list, the way that it was made, the modifications to the stage to help keep the list, like, as a whole more well-rounded. But because of the general removal of small blast zones, or in particular platform placement, platform height, platform distribution relative to the shape of the stage, there are a lot of center plats, there are a lot of short hop height plats, and there is not a lot of that land high, there's not a lot of that land near the edge, there's not a lot of recovery mix-ups enabled because of the platform locations. And I like when you have to edgeguard a Falco on Wario Land, that is inordinately more difficult than probably any other stage on the list, right?
So I think I addressed this in the next question, and which I think feeds well into this. It's should stage counter picks be meaningful enough to warrant having character first as standard? And basically, I mean that's kind of the point you're getting at. Bob kind of got at it earlier, is that character count or stage counter pick shouldn't decide matchups like that.
This is part of what I wanted to transition it to. Is actually, I think you guys definitely made the right move, making the list and then switching to stage first. Because what this list does is it does make a lot of the matchups a lot more samey. Characters that are really, really good at holding center are able to use the plats and prevent landing mix-ups or attempts to gain resources back by landing on the plat. It's easier to shark through the plats on almost every stage because they're at a reliable height, and characters need to fall a specific distance to get there, and there's no early landing, and there's no dynamic nature of the stage. There's no green hill zone plat that's like, oh, I can finally land because it landed high for me, thank God, right? There's none of that. And maybe you see that as a win, but first of all, Washington's a character first region, always has been.
As most are right now.
But I don't want this to be a character first, stage first debate at all, because
yeah, it's more talking about the
people
stages.
like what they like. Mm-hmm. But you guys made the right move with this list, making it stage first, because character first with some of the stages does promote that the stage influenced the matchup too much. And that line, I think, in the minds of people that are for this rule set change, or for these stages, or removing these things, is the line is a lot farther back for how much is like too much that it influenced the matchup. There are definitely some stages that you're just like, no, that's that character's best stage, I don't want to fight there. Like, I don't want to fight Rob on FD, right? But I do want to fight a lot of characters on FD. And I do, if I'm playing another character, want to pick FD into space animals a lot of the time, right? But that doesn't mean that the stage itself was so badly designed it had to go. It actually means that the stage was doing its job in the list by magneting bans so that characters are constantly getting their third best stages. I think that one of the worst things about the New York, New Jersey list as is that characters that are bad can't be made better because the stage list is not around to help them anymore. They don't get their third best stage. Every stage is their fourth or fifth best stage, and in some matchups, it's every stage is their worst stage. They can't even do anything because if the matchup is bad enough, or if the stage is bad enough, or the plat layout, whatever, since it's also samey, if they couldn't utilize what was there, since they can't utilize what's there for them, they can't utilize anything to give them like a leg up on their counter pick. And I think that is an issue.
So Bob, what do you think about this?
Wait, just to clarify, because you said something that was kind of weird to me. I don't know if you could clarify. You said that on PMBR, like, let's say like a low tier, they always get their third best stage, but on the NYNJ stage list, they get their fourth or fifth. Can you like elaborate on that? Like, because they still get their third stage because it's still two bands, right?
It is their third best. It's that their third best is less good for them. If you were to like put that same stage that they now have to counterpick to back into the PMBR list,
but that's
they wouldn't be picking it on that counterpick.
I see what you're saying, but that's so subjective, and that's so like not based on like that could vary so much, because what you're saying could be someone's like third best stage. There are characters where you get rid of their two best stages by a lot, and then it's like, what if they're just not very good on the other stages?
Yeah, like Ganondorf, you take away
Wario
FOD or Wario Green Hill, and then he's like, fuck, right?
Yeah, that's just a weird example, but I agree with a lot of the rest of your points. I do think that our stage list definitely is like more samey, and it definitely like not benefits, but it definitely plays more towards stage first, in the sense that because things are less extreme, that you're not gonna like get in these like horrible situations where it's like, okay, wait, this was supposed to be my counter pick, but now I'm playing on FD versus a character that chain grabs me. Like, what happened here? I lost my counter pick. And I'm also not gonna get into stage first, character first, like secondary, that kind of stuff. But I could get into that forever. Again.
Yeah. I mean, the PMBR list is the primary argument against stage first in general, is that there are stages that are polarizing, and if you don't know what to ban because your opponent has a pocket, or if like your bans are entirely ineffective because their pocket will get their best stage or their main will get their best.
The Ganon WarioWare is always the infamous one, even though it's still Ganon, but whatever.
Yeah, yeah. No, Ganon on WarioWare, but there are bad ones too. Like, person has a secondary Rob, and they go FD. They they get their second best stage. You ban FD anyway because you know about their Rob. They get their Smashville. They get their Dreamland. They get whatever they want, right? Because you can't cover with only two bans all in character first. You can't cover their mains 2 best stages and their secondaries 2 best stages if their matchup spread is split enough, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's where some people would say that in character first, they already have the leg up by being able to switch characters in the first place and change the tempo of the matchup.
It's a question of how much you want to
That's a
reward that.
character first. That's a character.
Yeah, that's a
stage
question
first.
of how much you want to reward that, and then like that's a whole nother thing because I think that you should reward it a lot because I think dual manning is like really hard. And I know some people that don't think it should be rewarded like at all because they're like, oh, dual manning is so easy because you can pick up a character. Like yeah, like you said, that's a whole nother thing. That could be a whole nother like topic. The whole can of worms.
I do have to ask Bob though. Do you think that there was any intention, like with the stage design of the new NY and J stages, to like push the game more towards player versus player matchups rather than like character versus character matchups?
It just because the intention and like I said, I like had like a decent part in making the stages. And first off, the intention of releasing it, because we weren't gonna release it until Gutty wanted to release it, and no, that's when we released it. We were just gonna like keep it to ourselves and like improve on it and make some changes. Because at the end of the day, the stage list is like pretty experimental, and I will say that I also have problems with a lot of the stages now, just playing on it in tournament. We've been playing on it, and I have seen like flaws with the stages and things I kind of want to change and things I kind of want to like differentiate. So it's like no, by no means I think there's a perfect stage list or even like a great stage list. That's not what I have intended. But I will say that I do think that like and it's kind of mirrors what I've been saying before. I think like stages should play like more of a minimal. I feel like the game had enough like kind of like interesting nuanced things to where I don't think we really need like the super wacky stage interactions to make the game shine. I think the game is like really interesting and really deep, especially as you get to like higher and higher levels. There's like really like small things that mean like a world of difference. And I just don't think like stages are like unnecessary component in adding in that. I like I said, and I will always say I think that the stage variety in our list is not enough. I do think there needs to be more kind of like differentiation of stages.
It felt like on that list, losing looked the same on almost every stage. It felt the same.
Yeah,
because your ways to stop losing were the same on every stage.
Okay, I kind of understand what you mean, but then losing isn't the same because the game was different. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I lost on this stage versus I lost on that stage. Okay, but what actually changed with my game plan? What changed with my strategy? Had I played differently? Did I not adapt? Was that the problem? I feel like that kind of stuff shines through. It's like a more kind of like conservative stage list. And I don't know. That's just kind of what I value as like a player.
I am a really, really big fan of like micro adaptations at a high level and them meaning like a world of difference. Because there's this situation that both players are ultra familiar with, so a really slight change can determine the winner, and then that is a very skillful adaptation. But I also don't think that the adaptation that's necessary when a stage offers a person a new way out of the corner or offers a new way in neutral, offers a new way to, or like a new movement ability, right? I don't think that those can be discounted. Having to play around and adapt to those and all the manner of different implications that those approaches or escape techniques or just movement tricks, right? I don't think that should be discounted because that is still meaningful, and having to adapt to that would still be skillful adaptation in the same exact way that having experienced this situation 50, 100, 1,000 times, I can now make this slight tweak because I knew that in this game state against this person, it would get me the win. I don't think that discounting what the stage can add is fair because that would still be expecting the person to adapt to it.
I see. So it's mostly the difference in perspective here is mostly just a sort of tolerance to I guess, the dynamic elements and like just wacky things in stages, I guess, because everyone here could obviously agree we'd never want like Rainbow Cruise legal, because that's we made that decision as a community in Melee like years ago. But I don't know, here there's just obviously I don't know, there's obviously something that feels more egregious.
So, but obviously, like, we're not gonna get to the point of like egregiousness as Rainbow Cruise, but I do feel like that PM players have kind of like Stockholm syndrome themselves into these stages. If I could be honest, like, I think that PM players have just kind of, like I said, and this is why I brought the Bowser thing. I think PM players kind of just like accept stuff, and then that was it. Like, they kind of accepted, like, okay, well, these are the stages, and then that's it.
Well,
and then PNBR came out, and then the whole huff about it, and it was like a big divide, and then a bunch of regions said they weren't going to run it at our nationals. You would see us from PNBR, and then even those small changes made like a really like big thing. Because I think PNBR overall was positive on the like stage list as a whole in comparison to 3.6, but that's only something that people kind of I think a lot of people think that. I think that's something that people only kind of realized in hindsight, and that just goes to say I feel like PM players have kind of like just gotten used to like these stages and have just kind of accepted them as like kind of this is just how it is. Like I think I was speaking to Kevin, and he said, and this something that stuck out to me because I just kind of asked, I'm like, oh, what do you guys think of FD? And he was like, okay, FD. He said, "Oh, I don't like it, but it's a necessary evil." And I was like, "Why is it a necessary evil, though? Like, why the necessary?"
It's because there's nothing like it. There's nothing that is offered, and if it in a character first thing, at least it magnets the ban, and then in some lists, it lets you show them why they should have banned it if they weren't ready, something like that. Like, I think that having that knowledge of what characters are good at is still a skill as well.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Do you think FD is a well-designed stage, though?
Well,
okay, let's say you were making the game, like right now, you're making stages. Would you make FD?
Yeah.
You would?
I would make a stage that doesn't have platforms in the platform fighter, because the way that platforms influence the game is they have an enormous effect on the game. Like, they give rise to so many different techniques, and what I was saying before with being able to adapt to those techniques, like specific waveland at waveland timings, adding the ability to shield drop by itself is pretty much a degenerate mechanic. Like, it's so strong that in some matchups or at some percents or in some places, you actually just have to hold that. You just have to deal with the fact that it exists and then hope that they slip up later, because on reaction they can just make their position better than yours if you try to take a risk, which is the problem that you were saying you had with the Smashville plat, and it's the problem that was visible in that grand set versus Thunders at Fair and Balance, where it's just like, oh, shield drop is so fucking strong, I just got to deal with it, and he's just got to deal with crouch canceling. Those two, I think both of those mechanics are also necessary evils, just like FD is, and the FD is the manifestation of mechanics like that. In the same way that also big stages, large blast zone stages like Dreamland, where characters live much longer than they should, or Wario Land, where they die earlier than they should, those would also be considered necessary evils, because
they do that. And it's funny, because I agree that, like, let's say crouch canceling, for example. I agree that crouch canceling is a necessary evil, because I think without crouch canceling, the game would be overall worse. I don't think without FD, the game would be overall worse.
Well, if you look at it in effect,
the term of necessary evil is so bizarre to me personally, because I look at FD as like this like weird thing that we've kind of like accepted that we have, but I don't really see like the benefit. Yes, it's unique, but I don't think most people think that FD is that good of a stage, like, overall.
It removes a lot of the defensive counterplay from the game, and it really just rewards, like, advantage state, like, so much more than any other stage. And, it's like, and then it really just makes a lot of matchups, a character only really has one ban instead of two. So it's like, in effect, it either doesn't get played on ever because it's always banned, or I mean, someone fucks up and they don't ban it, and then someone gets a much stronger counter pick than they generally should.
I don't think that it's fair to say that they got a stronger counter pick than they should, because if their opponent didn't know that what the ramifications of leaving that stage open is, that is their way to lose the game. In the same way that if they don't know that they should be CCing this move, and if they don't know that they can like shield grab this move, that they can move in on this move, wave dash out of shield lets them punish this move. Those are all bits of information that you have to know or figure out over the course of the game. And the counter pick, the opponent not knowing that a counter pick is much stronger than they thought, is something that they have to learn the hard way in the same way as they do those other things.
Yeah,
I don't think
agree
that's
with
unfair.
that. I agree with that. I agree that that knowing the stages, like knowing your counter picks is a part of knowing the game. Like, you know, if you don't know that, oh, my character gets chain grabbed by this character for this % on FD, then you know then you need to upgrade that as a player just with your knowledge, like knowledgeable enough. But once again, I will say that like I don't know. Okay. So just a question for you. With Okay, so just because I want to get an understanding of your perspective, because I feel like 90% of this we like pretty much agree with, but our like conclusion is like very different.
Yeah, I think
so
part of the
would
reason
you?
for that is where the line is that we draw for what's too much.
Yeah, I
what's
think
enough.
it's a line. Okay, so let's say you had just like some supreme control over the game. Obviously not realistic. What would you like? Where's your line in changing stuff? Like, would you get rid of Wispy? Would you get rid of Let's see. What would you kind of gear towards? Like, what's your line? Because that's kind of what I want to understand about you. Like, where's your line exactly? Like, would you get rid of Wispy? Like, would Wispy not blow?
Wispy, I don't feel like adds much, and he creates these situations that are weird. I don't hate that he's in the game. I don't love it. It's not. And if a person wanted to take him out, that's fine, right? FOD, if a person wanted to make it so that the platforms never went all the way into the ground, so that they never caused that weird disruption, right? So that they stopped at low. But then the thing is that on FOD, at least, that change makes the stage different, because there's never that flat portion of the stage anymore. Whereas on Dreamland, that doesn't really change the nature of the stage compared to the change that I just suggested to FOD, right?
Okay,
where
but
that is, I think that's where it becomes too much, is when it starts to change what the stage is or what it like means to pick it.
But if it changes the stage for, let's say, the better, is it worth keeping just because it's unique?
It's difficult to say if it's for the better automatically, though. Like, it's for the better. If you're the person changing it, it's really, really easy to say, no, obviously my change is for the better because you're the one that thought of it, or you obviously think the change is a good idea because you care enough to push it through, right? That doesn't automatically actually make the change better, though. It's just, you just think that it is. So you have to look at it in the context of like the other stages to consider if a change is like fair, or if it's unnecessary, or if maybe it's just a personal distaste that's shining through a little too strongly. And like if you're tunneling on like situations that are less than that are not in line with what you value in the game, or that are robbing you frequently, and so you get like a confirmation bias of like what it is to play on that stage. And then if the thing is, if you do away with that thing, it never happens again, and you just prove your confirmation bias correct, because you're like, this situation never happens to me anymore because the thing is gone. But you lose all those things that the stage did give you, unless you create some sort of appropriate substitute, which is very, very difficult. And I don't have a problem either with what you guys have done with making new stages and experimenting with them. I actually think that our stage list, while it's a really good list in my opinion, it also is stale. And if there were ways to play with it and creating these new stages, some of them are fun and fresh and new. And I like the Dust School one or something, right? Or the Dust School.
Yeah, you got it.
I like that one because it didn't feel like other stages that are currently on the list, but it still felt like it was a good stage. but it didn't feel distinct enough from some of the other ones on that list for me to be happy with it. But I would add it to, I would consider seasonal stage cycling or something like that, right? Where it's fun. There's this new fresh stage, like new DLC just dropped, and now we play on this instead of this list because the stage more or less fills the same niche. But you gotta be careful with stuff like that too, because making characters worse by taking away stages that are good for them completely that's cruel. I don't know. I think Samus is a lot worse for example, on the New York, New Jersey list. I would not be able to look Chevy in the eye making that list.
Really? I actually think I think all the floaties are like way better.
That is in part because the smaller blast zones are like heavily diminished, but they have less places to land, and Samus gets less tricks on that list, I think. Unless she gets, I don't know. I haven't seen Chevy mess around with it for a couple hours, so maybe she gets new missile shit. That's really cool. But that's an example. I don't think that it's fair.
Does.
It's mostly the plat heights that I would think of. Like higher plat heights or benefit fast fallers a lot more than, floaties. Just because they can't get up there and they can't deal with higher plats.
Yeah, but there's also the nature of being able to mix up your landing using higher plats, and then.
But then the opponent wouldn't be able to mix up their landing, and it's not like a easy thing to like. This is a very nuanced answer, which is like kind of what you're getting at, like because I think let's say like Peach, for example, I think Peach gets better from this list because there's less room for people to run around her. There's smaller stages, so she can actually interact and like not have to deal with the problem Peach deals with, which is people not interacting with her. And
she's so good at holding center in general, often. She's able to abuse that strength because they can't access the plat easily because of certain float height.
Yeah,
I've definitely seen it, and I can definitely see Peach being pretty strong on the list.
There's other stuff like there being less wall stages means that she has an easier time edge guarding certain characters, and I think that's just kind of like a byproduct of it. But I say this to say that I don't think like the stage list, like our stage list itself, like. I don't think whether it benefits or like I remember Aki said she said that it like she thought it would benefit the top tiers and like be bad for the low tiers or something like that. I'm like I don't think that was exactly it, but I was like, man, I like don't agree with that, and I feel like there's like definitely room to grow, and I do agree that like PMBR stage list is pretty stale. I do think that like it needs to be shaken up. Now, what it needs to be shaken up with, that's part of this discussion, but I think that we could definitely do like at least a little better.
So this
I don't
make it a little.
I don't think that what you said is super far off from what Aki was saying in the first place, though. That low tiers are worse off in the New York, New Jersey lists compared to top tiers.
I think
because if the stages are samey, what the top tier that is actually pretty close to what she was saying because she's
it was something like that.
It's the thing is. I don't disagree with that sentiment completely because if the stages are samey, what the top tiers are good at happens more often. Because the reason they're top tiers is there are situations that happen very frequently and they win frequently in those situations. That's what makes them top tier, right? Well, I don't know. Maybe you disagree with that definition of a top tier.
Are those more of a product of the stages or just a product of the kits that the top tiers have in the first place?
The stages make their kit better by making those situations happen even more often. Then they did end up better off. They end up happier.
But okay, let's say a situation where a character isn't good because of they're not good on the stages. Like they're not good on like the high variety of stages. Let's say someone isn't particularly good at dealing with like the infinite walls. So that's 3 stages that they have in PMBR, and they also aren't good with like big blast zones. So that's already 4. So it's like, now they have 4 bad stages. So and I say that to say that, I don't think that it's so black and white to say, it benefits X and doesn't benefit Y.
I think sometimes your bans go through in character first because, it's not because it's their best stage. This is definitely my worst stage in the matchup. And that might be something that you're trying to address with some of these changes. And by making all the stages samey, it does do that, but also the problem that creates is that that means that your bans often don't mean very much in stage first or character first because the stage is the same, or similar to the last one. So the same situations keep happening. You can't come out on top. There's no new way to move. There's nothing you can whip out on your opponent that's new to them that might sort of catch them off guard or surprise them and be useful to you because of it.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I can see what you're saying, but you could also just like play the game and kind of play better and kind of adapt to
Mm.
that. And I think that's where our big disconnect is. It's like I think that, let's say a stage is samey, and so let's say your counter pick isn't that much better than what you just played on previously. Like, let's say it's like a tiny bit better. I think if you are playing equally as bad as the stage that you just lost on, you should probably just lose. Like, do you really deserve a win? You know, it's like you didn't play any better. It's like
Quantifying that gets really difficult, though. Like, all right, can you even say that you're confident they're playing exactly the same, but they're just winning now because of the stage? Most of the time, I wouldn't say
yeah,
that.
it's getting into
Like, a person is able to play better on the next stage, also maybe because they're more comfortable on this stage.
Yeah, and there's stuff like stage comfortability and that kind of stuff. But I think and that's why I kind of like the stage list more than the PNBR list. Like, I think the stage list is okay, like I said, but I like it a bit better because it just kind of like, it's kind of like what I was saying, where it does, you know, show that, okay, well, you did something different, and it had less to do with the stages and more to do with you playing different, you playing a little bit better.
Because it creates more of the same situations. You can make smaller adaptations that are meaningful.
And like I said, it doesn't have to be like, okay, well, this stage makes this matchup unplayable, and that's why I picked it. It could be like, oh, okay, I feel a little bit comfortable on the stage list. I like the platform layout a little bit more. I'm like, my character has like a waveland on it, or like the thing where she could like do her short hop and then she'll land on the platform. Like that happens on some stages. That's kind of small, but that kind of stuff makes a big difference. And like with the stage list, I think that's kind of what we were going. Like, I think the stages are obviously less varied than PNPR list and like other stage lists, but I think that like the little stuff will shine through. Like the kind of small nuanced stuff, like preferences, like small platform heights that make a big difference, like blast zone changes. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've killed myself on the Bowser stage, there or whatever, because the bottom blast zone is just higher, and I just kill myself, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not really comfortable with the stage yet. I need to like learn that. That's like a small thing where it's like make a big difference, and kind of just what I value more in stages. And I do think that's kind of where the big disconnect is. It's like I said, that line that where we think, okay, well, this stage is acceptable to be changed, versus, oh, okay, just get over it. It's part of the game.
I see. Okay. Well, with that being said, I think I have one final question that I really want to lay out here. And that's just going to be, should the entire community have one cohesive stage list, or do unique regional lists have benefits that outweigh the standardization? Which is kind of what we already have happening right now, with NYNJ running their stages. So I'm wondering what you guys think about that. Let's start with Jared here.
I think I don't actually have a problem with unique regional lists or unique regional rule sets, whether it be like we don't run this stage in this place, we run stage first, because generally I just like competing in most every rule set, because the in-game stuff doesn't change too much with those rule sets. It changes enough to be an annoyance at times, right? But at least with new stages, if the stage list is a little different, we're pretty transparent and open, and we share actively as a community all this stuff, as long as the stages are available and people can have preparatory time. And I don't actually have a problem with regional lists, provided that they're not like. I would still, if you guys were running, I can't make it to Blacklisted because I'm going to Jailbreak instead, right? But if you're running that at Blacklisted and I was gonna go to Blacklisted, I'd still play. I wouldn't be like, oh fuck, I don't want to enter this tournament anymore or anything, because I don't find the one cohesive stage list thing to be automatically a problem. I just would want some level of standardization, where a list, as long as a list has that feel of it considers the whole list in what stages it includes, I don't have a problem with it. That should be the standard for like stage list balance, anyways. That the stages take into account different attributes that need to be balanced relative to one another.
I see. Bob, you have anything to add?
Not really. It's I kind of agree with what you just said. I'd prefer to have one stage list, to be honest. Like, just as like let's say you're going to a national thing now.
Yeah.
You just go. You want to play the stages that you've been practicing on. So I think it's definitely preferred. But I'm not gonna like blow a gasket if a region's like trying out a different stage or like a different stage list, or we're like introducing Sky Sanctuary for like a month or whatever. Like I think that's fine. It's kind of a part of the game, part of keeping the game fresh. I do think it's good for people to experiment and stuff. So yeah, I don't have problems.
That is the one thing I do like, or the biggest thing I do like about the list you guys are implementing is that you have these stages that are none of them are terrible at all, not even close. At least maybe now that you've played on some of it, you're like, no, I changed my mind. Like this one is actually awful, right?
Bad, but it's fine.
But like none of them felt awful when I was playing on them. They just felt like samey, like I was saying.
Yeah.
That's but since none of them are awful, you're experimenting, and that creates some freshness, and I like and I respect that. Because those are the kind of healthy changes that and rule set changes that I don't think are problematic for the scene.
Yeah, and this was just something we just kind of did, just like a little origin story. We did this originally because we were playing a lot of doubles, and we were trying to find more. We were trying to find more stages for doubles, and we kind of went through like a bunch of mod packs that have 1,000 stages, a bunch of stage lists, and we experimented with a bunch of them, and a lot of them were terrible. We played on the banana stage with the platform, and then platform, and then platform. That was bad. Oh man.
No, okay. Actually that makes a lot of sense because the way that these stages feel, or the way that a lot of the stages felt, they felt very appropriate for doubles rather than for singles. Not rather than, but it's because they felt like a more normalized. It felt like they accounted for more of what doubles goes for in the metagame than what singles goes for.
Yeah, and that was kind of like the origin of it. Like we kind of started with doubles, and then we kind of made a stage list. We kind of tweaked it every so often, and then eventually we just started playing it in singles, and then we tweaked it a little bit, and then kind of released it. And then Gutty posted it, and I was like, "Word!" And now I'm here. But no, and just to get back on the topic of regional stuff, I think it's good for people to experiment just in general with everything because, like I said, and my big thing is I think that we could always make it a little better. It doesn't have to be some. But there's always, I think everyone can agree that there's always little stuff with whether it be the game itself, the balance, coding, aesthetic stuff, stages. I think there's something that you can make it a little better, overall. And I like when people experiment, even when I think the stage is ridiculous. Like Sky Sanctuary, for example, I think that stage is pretty awful. We also tried playing on that for a little bit, and that was an experience. But it's good that people plan. It's good that I got to plan. I got to plan a lot of stages that I previously thought. For example, I liked Yoshi's story a lot before we started this whole thing. And then because I liked it, and because we liked it, we started playing it more. And by a month and a half in, we were like, man, this stage is terrible. What happened?
And you ditched Randall, you unsloped the sides, and you're like, now it's good again, right?
We're like, oh man. Randall killed me again, or the slopes are weird, and then so there was a lot that went into this, and I will say, I've said it a lot of times, this is an experiment. I don't think this stage list is gonna be the same in 4 or 5 months, let's say. It was always meant to be very experimental, get a lot of feedback on it. That's why I was okay with it being released, and I'm glad people offered the feedback. I don't like that a lot of people offered the feedback before playing on it, but that's just a nature of anything.
Yeah, that's just people being.
That's just that's just how it is. But I'm glad that people played on it, and like I said, I agree with you that the stage list feels a little samey, and there could be some variety with it, to add a little bit more. I think that knowing that kind of stuff is valuable because It's like I didn't agree with that when we first released it, but now I do agree with it after playing on it, and I think that having outside people play in like kind of regional lists like that, I think it's good. It benefits, and I think it'll help our stage list if we like make another one. I don't know if we will, but it'll help our stage list be a little bit better because we got feedback from everyone.
Yep, I do like that conceptually, just receiving the feedback and altering it. Iterative improvement as far as the game is concerned, I think stage list is actually the most appropriate place to do it. Like regionally, we're not big on a lot of the balance changes for P+, because some of them felt too sweeping. Instead of being some of them were not as iterative as maybe they should have been. But with stages, it's easy to make that list and change and keep the game fresh and change the balance and tweak the metagame a little bit in ways that can be fun instead of, because a lot of stage changes can be done out of curiosity, creativity, because you want to experience something new rather than because you hate something old. Right. A lot of those stages aren't made necessarily because you're like, fuck Wario Land, fuck FOD. That might be why you make the whole list, but then when you're making the stages themselves and improving upon them, you go, it's because this one can be just a little bit better than the last one. It'll be fun, and it's nice. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I really had prepped question-wise. I think we did a pretty good job there. I'm just gonna open it up to some viewer questions right now. We got one from Kevin a little bit ago. I'll start with that. He's asking, how different should a singles/double stage list be from each other? So I'll have Bob open that one up.
Not that different. It could. I don't think. And there's something else I realized. I don't think that the singles and double stage list have to interact at all. I think a lot of them do, but I don't think it necessarily has to. I think that's kind of like a limitation that we've kind of made from Melee. That we just kind of, Melee, they have one stage list. They have a limited number of stages, so it just happens to be that most of the stages in singles have to be the same stages in doubles. But I don't think it necessarily has to be the same. I think it could be like a completely different stage list. Now, it doesn't need to be because, a lot of the single stages happen to be good double stages. But just in terms of, like, necessary, I think that it could be every stage could be different, and I think that could be fine. I don't
A
think
lot
it
of
needs to be
that's just,
interactive.
I mean, earlier you said you like to, be practicing on the stages you're going to play, and I think a lot of people practice, well, I mean, most people practice singles way more than they practice doubles, so that's kind of a boon to having, them be the same list. Because if you have a lot of doubles-only stages, you really only play them in bracket a lot of the time. Which, I mean, that could be fine, but...
Oh, shoot. My mic was muted.
No.
Okay. So, Joey, I actually think that's a super duper good point. And I agree completely with you, Bob, there, that it would be totally okay for a dubs list and a singles list to vary wildly if, like, on the condition that what Joey brought up is the case, where there's more time and more investment and more involvement in practicing doubles. Because doubles is wildly different from singles. It means a lot of different stuff over the course of the game. And so the lists being dependent on one another, dubs using only the singles list is not necessarily necessary. And my attitude towards the list changed completely when you said that you like started out playing it on doubles mostly. I was like, oh, that's badass. That actually a lot of those stages are probably really fucking fun on dubs.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. It's like where doubles is, and not to say it's not actually I'll just say it's not as important as singles. Like most people don't value it the same. Like, so it's like it'd be nice. It's nice the fact that most of the stages in singles correspond with the stages in doubles because you're already kind of practiced on it. You're kind of familiar with those stages.
Yep. It lets you save time. Like
in a hypothetical world, doubles is like bigger and like an actual like big thing. Then I think it would be fine. Okay. Thinking about it in hindsight, most people don't care about doubles at all. Like, they'll just they enter it because they want more things to play, or they just kind of want to like have another chance to compete.
Okay. And then our next question, is there any merit to asymmetry, or should stages always be symmetrical? Jared, you want to lead off this one?
Stage symmetry, Okay, the problem with asymmetry is that designing it without creating degenerative patterns in neutral is very difficult. I don't think that symmetry is a design goal. I think it's more like a form follows function kind of thing. You design it symmetrically because you realize that when it's designed symmetrically, people don't just hug one side of the stage in the matchup.
Yep.
And specifically when you're talking symmetry, 99% of the time what you're talking about is like platform layout. Actually, I've not met a person that really cares that Metal Cavern has this like weird fucking shape where it's like 90 degrees like this, where it's like a half wall on one stage and then a fucking battlefield ass slope on the other. I've never met anyone that has mentioned it, right? People have probably noticed, and some people probably have an opinion, but I don't think anyone's actually cared enough to say anything, unlike on some other stages. That kind of asymmetry is not automatically problematic. It being harder to recover on the left side versus the right side is not problematic. But platform placement means that a lot of the defensive stuff, some of the extremely powerful stuff involving platforms like waveland movement or shield, especially shield drop camping becoming really, really strong on one part of the stage, meaning you're playing on that same 30 to 40% of space on the stage the whole match. Probably not the best. I don't think asymmetry itself is a problem, but I think it will cause problems.
I see.
Yeah, I really don't have anything to say. He like hit everything on the coffin. I think asymmetry itself isn't problematic, like the concept. Like we tried a couple kind of things that weren't like the same on both sides. It was pretty bad. Just because of what you said, and like there's been stages like that in the past. Like obviously the stage is a little worse, but the Skyloft stage, in old 3.0, I'm playing on that stage, and it's like if you're on one side, you literally have the high ground. Like that's it.
Yeah.
And that was my same problem with the old Castle Siege. It was like I felt like you just had an inherent, like you wanted to be on a certain side of the stage every time, and it was like really weird, and I was like, man, what did this kind of turn into? And so yeah, there's nothing wrong with it like inherently. Like I think maybe like the Metal Cavern thing, like you said, no one really mentions it. I think it's like a little silly, but I'm like whatever. It's not that big of a
You
deal.
don't care enough to talk about it, even. For
Yeah, but I feel like once we get in the realm of talking about platforms, platforms,
it starts to cause problems.
Yeah, it starts to be like, okay, well now I have a platform, you have nothing because I'm on the right side of the stage. And it starts weird stuff with spawning. It's like, damn, I just spawned in the wrong side of the stage. I started with disadvantage. Just weird stuff could come up, and it could be kind of bad.
I think that that might be an interesting thing to bring up, because the only other kind of asymmetry that I don't think is degenerative, but it's noticeably missing from your guys' lists for the most part, is Smashville and Green Hill Zone have this conditional asymmetry, and nobody actually is complaining about the asymmetry of the stage necessarily in a match. They're not like, I spawned sometimes it's like, the Smashville platform's over me at the start of the game, I'll be able to move in a new way, but that's not necessarily degenerate. That's a one-off thing, and then you're going to be able to use that over the course of the game, because the platform's temporary location changes every single situation to require adaptation. And I think that's a good thing, but I guess obviously you left Smashville on the list, but like with the it's on the stage the whole time. So conditional asymmetry can be fun.
Yeah, I think it's just more dynamic. It's like not like okay, this platform can be here all the time. Like I've definitely noticed moments where I like Smashville platform doesn't spawn where I want it to begin with the match. I'm kind of like at a small disadvantage. But it's gonna move eventually. I'm sure like points in the match will come where, because the Smashville platform is at a certain place, I'll get a natural advantage, and I think that's like okay-ish.
Because it shakes out in the end.
It's dynamic. Yeah, it's not like just sitting there.
Static asymmetry is probably the problem to design. Like I cannot think of a way to design a statically asymmetrical stage and have it be fun.
Yeah.
Or like
it could be fun,
have
but
it not be susceptible to degeneration.
Yeah, it's just not. Yeah, I agree.
Got it. And then one more question from Half a Walrus: is it more important to make brand new stages with new ideas and platform layouts, or to work on fixing issues that exist with our current stages without throwing out the design idea? And I mean, we can already see the NYNJ stage list did this a bit, with what they did with the Smashville plat.
Okay,
Also
but
introduced new stages a lot.
I will say that a lot of the reason why we didn't just straight up change the old stages have a lot to do with limitations. Like we were just kind of threw it together. It was pretty ragtag. Like there was no like real like design or dev team, so it was like, it's like, oh, why didn't you just like alter this stage? A lot of the answers was we couldn't. Like we just didn't know how to.
We
So,
didn't put that much effort behind it.
Yeah, it was like
makes
Boyko tried to learn it. He couldn't learn it. Well, we gave up.
There's kind of,
And then
I
we
mean,
made it to stage.
there's kind of a benefit of that though, in that you get a lot more different aesthetics by adding in like newer stages and stuff. Because there's kind of a problem with the current stage list, and like there's we have so many different like series represented in our games, but like 3 of the stages are like Kirby stages or something.
I don't know. That New York, New Jersey list went kind of hard on the fucking Zelda representation. Instead.
You're right.
Yo,
but
once
there's no
again,
Zelda
because
stages.
We couldn't.
Not on purpose.
we couldn't. It was just like, oh, this stage has a nice base. We could edit this, and it just happened to be Zelda, and that was like so secondary in our minds because we were just trying to get the fucking work.
Personally, that the Skinner aesthetic thing to the stage actually not very far in my mind when I'm. Some people say, Q-Tip likes to say, oh, God, I hate Metal Cavern because it's so ugly. If you just made it less ugly, I'd like it more. And I'm like, I didn't even notice. What are you
I don't
talking
think it's that
about?
ugly, but
I don't think it's that ugly. It's just it's kind of a nasty color on some CRTs, but it's whatever.
But yeah.
But
So it's like
no.
it doesn't really matter that much whether you like create a whole new stage or like edit the existing one, because like
Well-
either way you're just gonna choose which stage you really like more, you feel better with.
That's from an aesthetic standpoint. I actually do think that disposing of a stage from the list or editing it so that you consider like if New York, God forbid, New York, New Jersey, Smashville becomes the new standard of Smashville, right? That overwrites Smashville, and so that offstage plat thing is gone forever, right? So I think that there's a lot of merit in not considering these new stages to be updated versions of stages or tweaked versions of stages, rather than calling them new stages, calling them what they are, which is actually new stages themselves.
They're
I
new
think
stages.
that not labeling them as like a reskinned or modified version of another stage, or an updated or tweaked or balanced like version of the stage, it leaves it open to where you can have this rotating this ability to maybe
I
rotate the
see.
stage
So
and have this new fun stuff.
Yeah,
without
it preserves the soul of the stage.
exactly
more so.
tossing out the stage itself in the name of just wanting to play on a new stage, which is totally fine.
Yeah, I don't think our Wario land on our stage list is like meant to like replace the Wario.
Yeah, me neither.
Where because it's like yeah, it looks the same, but once again limitations of all of that, and then 2, they're just like so functionally different that like you can't compare them just because of aesthetics. Like it's just like they aren't, like so many situations change completely because of the stage list being different. And I do think that we should like let's say like rotating stage list would be made if the capability was there. I do think that they should be like kind of like their own separate stages, and so that it's like not like, oh, we're trying to like completely replace this stage. Like, okay, well, this is like its own separate stage as like an alternative, let's say.
It would be badass to just get this build together that's like, I don't know, current build P+ or something that has all of these stages that have this competitive viability to them, and then to play with a rotating stage list that just generally builds off of that build itself, because there are a shit ton of stages that nobody gives a flying fuck about.
That's just there. That's just there, and it's just taking up room. I know we could do that. Like, I don't know if you play on the build. You said you have where you could like change the stages in the menu.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the
menu,
actual,
like
the debug menu, like that could be utilized with like a bunch of stages. And so let's say like a situation comes up where like a lot of people have like kind of like a regional stage list, then you could go to the PM build and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to this Massachusetts monthly in a month. Now I can practice on their like regional stage list while I can, and like have the option to, and you can change it. And it's like really dynamic, and I think that's a cool option to have. Whether it'll happen or not, probably not. But it's just like It's there. Like the
It
technology
has a lot of
there.
potential.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential for a lot of cool stuff.
All right. Well, unless we have any other viewer questions, I think we're about good to wrap it up now. Anything else you guys want to add on, just for the cast as a whole today?
No, I mean, I feel like we talked out a lot of the differences. I think the biggest thing between our perspectives is where we draw the line at too much for
Yep.
a stage's influence. And everybody's entitled to their opinion on that, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
And everyone's opinion on that is going to be different based on like their experience with the
Yep.
game,
Yeah,
or
what
how
they
they are the
value.
person. Yeah. I will say, and Joey can attest to this. I thought this would be much more violent. Sosa wanted us to scrap. he was like, yeah, you gotta fight him. I'm like, what? I was like, what am I getting into?
no, one of
But
the guys
this was fun. I enjoyed this. I think, like I said, I think we agreed on a lot of stuff, and I feel like I got a lot of takeaways from it. So I
Power Up, one of the basically the ESS boss guy. He's our de facto leader. He's like, you got to remember the brand. Don't say anything stupid. And I'm like, fuck you, dude. I had this handled, and now all I want to do is say
I was prepared for it to go either way personally, but I'm glad we got some good discourse going through actually, because I mean that's really the point of big talk.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like there's too much subtweeting in our community, too much, I don't know, just talking shit in our own personal discords. Not enough, I don't know, just direct communication.
Yeah. Like I don't talk to anyone from Washington because and then it's just like
notoriously garbage region.
Notoriously garbage. Yeah, this is the first time like really talking. Like we talked like a tiny bit at Riptide or whatever.
Yep.
But I'm glad I talked to you. This was a cool conversation. Something I wouldn't have done probably ever if not for this. It's fun.
Yeah. Thanks for this, Joey. It was good to
Of
like
course.
swap ideas.
I mean, thanks to you
might
both
play,
for
might
coming
play
on.
with the idea of like a different doubles list, but I'm not the rule set maker here. I'm just part of the rule set making team. Just I don't know, a different doubles list that could be kind of cool.
Yeah, or like just like modified doubles, like adding on some stages in doubles. I think doubles is like a completely different beast from singles. So there's definitely like stuff that could be like kind of added and subtracted, kind of switched around. Like there's some interesting stuff there.
I think that regional input is something that is like lacking on this like national patching scene. Basically, Washington has largely been left out of a lot of discourse with regards to changes made to the game or the meta game, especially during like in P+ and stuff. But I'm glad that we could have this discussion and kind of be a bug in your ear about different ideas for the philosophy of the stage list design, actually. You said you got some takeaways, and that I'm very happy to hear that, basically.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, I'd say this was about as successful a first episode as I could really ask for. So if you guys want to go ahead and maybe plug anything, any social media, any maybe tournaments or streams that you're gonna have happening soon, go ahead.
Yep.
Bob, you got anything?
You already know I got a shill. I got a shill for
Yeah.
match point. That's this Sunday.
Shouts to young Matt. That's all I have. He lost to Raz this weekend. That was
No.
that was
We got a tournament on Sunday. Match point streamed at PNW_Project M on Twitch.
PNW.
PNW_Project M, and I think there's an underscore. Maybe there's not. Maybe I'm stupid. But yeah, we have our bi-weekly. We got I think 30 entrants last time. Should be a good one this time because a bunch of people that didn't go to that last one are coming to this one, and yeah, it should be a good time. Just tune in on Sunday. We always commentate top 8, and we run a tight ship there. It's a good stream. We have super high production quality. Shout out to everybody at ESS, especially Gentleman and Q-Tip for holding everything down, keeping it together, and to Power Up and Forest Fire for making sure that ESS is successful enough that I get to do stuff like this. Thanks to everybody, basically.
Of course, it's always excellent working with you guys, even if you don't always finish the brackets out on Smash GG.
No, you gotta no that grand set is still going on, man.
And then for NorCal, we're going to be having Ascension tomorrow, actually, 3 p.m. in Davis. We should have the stream for that over at the youtube.com / I believe it's Project M Club at Davis, UC Davis. I'll have that linked on my Twitter. And then, Bob, you just won Cream of the Crop the other night. Was that last night or the night before?
It was last night.
It was last night, yeah.
Nice.
Today's Friday. Yeah, I remember I was watching Moldrifter go off.
That was disgusting because it made the tournament last probably an hour more, but it was really funny. So I enjoyed that immensely.
DDD's he's just a funny character.
He was just a menace. He was killing everyone.
The way he took that first game from Pete, I was like, oh my god.
I was like, is he gonna? I said, if Moldrifter takes another game, I'm gonna start warming up in the corner. I'm getting up commentary. He's a
DDD makes me stick to my stomach. I hate DDD.
Shit. Yeah, that was fun. I guess I should shield the monthly, which is tomorrow. I'm probably not going because no, I'm like having family, so I can't go. But I don't know the name of it, and I don't have a link. So,
that's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
Supporting the scene. Killing it.
All right then, and then I do have to shill the Lon Ranch Discord, posting in the chat right here, right now. Just recently opened up for the community, so I am the newest member of the Lon Ranch along with Sosa, and this is really my first pursuit. So it would be great if you guys all joined here. And yeah, give us a little shout out. Maybe you, viewer, could be on the next big talk.
Yeah, thanks for the show. It was a good time.
Yeah, this is
Of course. All right, I think we'll end it there then. You guys have a great night. All right, peace out, chat.
Later.
Oh, and don't forget to follow and prime to twitch.tv / LG_biglarge. Peace.